Hilchos Geirushin Perek Shneim Asar, the laws of divorce, chapter 12. We're basically done with the laws that govern the actual transfer of a divorce. Today, the topic is mainly after the fact, if there are some fights between a wife and her husband, or between the husband and the agents, who's believed as to whether the woman is divorced. And also in the second half of the chapter, we start the major subject of agunot. Women that can be in a potential situation where they can never remarry because they cannot prove that their husband was dead. And the Rambam discusses the leniencies that the sages put into place so that Jewish women could remarry, because we want that. We don't want women to stay trapped. So there's a bunch of leniencies in place. And that's going to continue tomorrow as well, till the end of the laws of divorce is going to be discussing agunot, these women who are in limbo situations. So we begin with a very classic concept in halacha. This concept is called hapeshe asar hu hapeshe shehitir. The same mouth which forbids is the same mouth which can permit, which means if you are our only source of information, you get to tell us whatever you want. So the same mouth which forbade it is the same mouth which permitted it. So we're going to have a similar law when it comes to divorce. It says that Rambam halacha aleph, ha'isha sheba va'amra. A woman comes to court and she says, Eishes ish hayisi ugrusha ani. I used to be married, now I'm divorced. Now, we don't know this woman, so she's our only source of information. She's telling us that she used to be married, which makes her forbidden to marry anybody else. But then she says, I'm also divorced, which permits her to get married to anybody else. So the Rambam says, Ne'emenes, she's believed. Shehapeshe asar hu hapeshe hitir. Because the same mouth which is forbidding her, herself, is now permitting her. However, what's the opposite case of that? Huchzika eishes ish. If we know she's married, we don't need her to tell us she's married. We have people who saw her and her husband living as man and wife. She's presumed to be married. Uba v'amra gershani baili. And then she comes and says, just my husband divorced me. We cannot just simply believe her based on her words that she's now permitted to marry anybody else, because the last thing we know about her is that she's married. She can't come just with her words and undo that. We believe her with regard to stringency, that now she won't be able to ever marry a Kohen. But to marry anybody, we don't listen to her. If her husband, that we presume to be her husband, then dies, childless, we do worry about her words. We do accept the fact that she may be divorced. And therefore we only allow her to perform chalitza with her dead husband's brother, and we don't allow her to perform yibum. This is coming up very soon in the next set of laws. Classically, if a guy dies childless, the brother has to marry his dead brother's widow. But that's a huge prohibition that you seem to be violating. It's forbidden according to Torah to marry your brother's wife. Only in the place of a mitzvah do we allow it. So here, where she might have been divorced, we have to worry that maybe she is divorced, and we cannot allow the brother to just marry her, because maybe they were never even married. And so therefore, we say that the bond is there, but he has to undo the bond with chalitza and not with yibum. He cannot marry her. Halacha beis. Hayu la shnei edim shehi grusha. If a woman walks into court with two witnesses, see, these guys are saying this woman is divorced. She has two witnesses saying that she is divorced. Afal pi she'ein sham get. Even if there's no actual divorce document. Harezu tinasi lechatchila. She can get married initially based on the testimony of two witnesses. Similarly, if she takes out a divorce document from her hand and she says, this is the document which my husband used to divorce me, she is believed, she can get married on that basis, even if it's not verified, the signature is inside of it. As we've explained in chapter 7, that a woman is believed if she's holding her divorce document. Later on, halacha gimel ba habal ve'irer. What if the husband later on comes and says, he protests, and he wants to say that this divorce is a bad divorce? So now we have to pay very careful attention to what the husband is going to say. What is the line that he's going to use as his attack? Im amar loy nesativla. If his line of attack is, I never gave her the divorce. Here she is in court holding a divorce document. This is the divorce. Husband says, I never gave it to her. Ela nafal mimeni umatza oisa. What he says is, it fell out of my pocket, and she found it. So, think about what he's saying. He's admitting that he wrote a divorce. He's just saying, I never gave it to her. So now, since the woman is holding it, she's more powerful. Ein eman, he's not believed. He's agreeing that he wrote the divorce for her, and she's holding it. The only hole here is that he's saying, I never gave it to her. But you're admitting there was a divorce. So we can't believe you if she's holding it. Avolim amar habal. But here, look at this case. What if the husband, his line of attack is a bit different? He says, al tanai haya. The whole divorce was on condition, and it wasn't fulfilled. Pikadin haya. I only deposited it by her. I never gave it to her as a divorce. Or he says, I never even wrote it. It's a forgery. Then, since he's undermining the entirety of the divorce, we do believe him and require the woman to bring verification. It has to be verified based on the witnesses signed in it, or based on the witnesses who saw the transfer of the divorce. And if they cannot verify it, she's not divorced as it relates to marrying other people, but we do believe her with regard to disqualifying herself from marrying a Kohen. Another famous principle in halacha: if you come to court and disqualify yourself by your own admission, you have made yourself what the Talmud calls like a piece of forbidden meat. She says, I'm divorced. So she messes herself over. We may not believe you to go marry anybody else, but that you're not allowed to marry a Kohen, that's not going to be allowed. Because you, by your own declaration, made yourself forbidden to marry a Kohen. Halacha dalet. Bahi ubayla. A woman and her husband come to court. Hi emeres geirashtani va'avad giti. The woman is saying, this guy divorced me. I just lost my document. And he's saying, I never divorced you. So in the last case, she's holding the divorce document. But here she's not holding it. She's saying, I got divorced, but I lost it. And the husband is now saying, I didn't divorce you. Even if there's a presumption that she's his wife, fascinatingly, we still believe the woman. And she is divorced, but for a different reason. We have a presumption that a woman would not be brazen in front of her husband. We had this in the laws of marriage, that if a couple is married and the wife, in the middle of walking on the street, goes over to another guy and takes Kiddushin, we assume that she got divorced from the first husband because she wouldn't just act so brazenly to nullify their marriage in front of him. So here too, the fact that she is saying, you divorced me, the courage that it took to say that shows that she must be telling the truth. Now, as I mentioned back then, the Rambam in Shulchan Aruch says that today we don't use this anymore because women have become extra brazen. It used to be they weren't so brazen in front of their husbands, now they are. So we cannot use this svara, this logic. Halacha, hey, Amar haba, geirashti asishti. If a husband comes on his own and he says, I divorced my wife, einay ne'eman, we don't believe him, simply on that basis to make his wife a divorcee. But we do worry a little bit for his words, and she's a doubtful divorcee. And here, this is counterintuitive. Even if the woman then admits and says, yeah, he divorced me, we still can't believe the man. Maybe he's trying to mess her up. He wants her to get remarried to somebody else and make mamzerim and make a problem. Or maybe he gave her a canceled get, a void get, and she doesn't know. So she's saying, yeah, he divorced me, but she doesn't know it's a problematic divorce. Or maybe here, she has no problem being brazen because she sees that he's supporting. He says, I divorced my wife, so she goes, yeah. She'll jump on the wagon. She'll be quicker to jump on the wagon here. And perhaps she doesn't understand the severity of her prohibition. So she thinks, no problem, I'll be considered divorced, but it's really a huge deal. If she goes marry somebody else, it's going to be mamzer kids. Therefore, in this case, what do we tell him? We say, look, you're saying you divorced your wife? Okay. If you're actually divorcing her, so what do you care to divorce her again? We tell him, if it's true, here you are, you're both standing in front of us. Divorce her again in front of us to take away all doubt. Anyways, you want to be divorced from her. That's what you're saying. So do it again over here, and we clarify all issues. Halacha vav. Shnayim emrim nisgarsha, u'shnayim emrim lo nisgarsha. There is two witnesses in court saying, this woman is divorced. And two witnesses are saying, she's not divorced. Now, it's important to clarify what that means. She's not divorced means she got a divorce, but it wasn't a good divorce. Because you can't just have a fight and say, two people say she's divorced, two people say, no, she's not. What do you mean? Like, how do you know? Just because you didn't see anything doesn't mean anything. they have to be saying the divorce that she got wasn't a good divorce. So then, even if the husband is standing there and she's telling him, you divorced me, in which case usually she would be believed because she wouldn't be brazen in front of her husband, but here she has witnesses backing her up. She is presumed to be a completely married woman because witnesses are backing her up, supporting her, and women are not afraid to be brazen if witnesses are backing them up. Therefore, so strict is this case that if she gets married, based on the testimony of the witnesses who say she got divorced, Teitze, she must leave her second husband, V'havlad mamzer, and any babies born from that are illegitimate, because of the other two witnesses who said she's not divorced. And we have to fall back on the premise that she's actually married. Halacha zayin b'med dvarim amurim, when does the above apply? Kisha amru achshav nisgarsha. If the two witnesses were saying, it just happened right now. A couple hours ago she got divorced. Where we can challenge the woman and say, look, if you're actually divorced, produce your document. It just happened 3 hours ago. I mean, look, how'd you lose it so fast? But if the first set of witnesses is saying she got divorced a few days ago, then we have to step in and say, wait, perhaps she lost the document. And since in the end of the day she's saying I'm divorced and she has two witnesses backing her up, and even if the other two are contradicting her, there's more room to be lenient. Not so lenient that we're going to let her get married to anybody, but lenient enough, if she gets married to one of the witnesses who said she's divorced, we don't force her out of the marriage. Because she is certain, the witnesses are certain, and she's not marrying anybody else, she's marrying them. Because her and her husband both know with certainty that she's permitted, according to their testimony. We have a presumption people don't ruin themselves. So if they're both sure that the husband divorced her, they have no problem getting married. But of course, if she get married to somebody else, since it's a doubt by him, he's not sure if the original husband divorced the wife or not. Or if she says, I don't know. Two witnesses are saying she is divorced. Two witnesses are saying she's not divorced. And she says, I don't know. She can't even marry one of her witnesses. Because even if the witness is sure, she's not sure. And therefore, she needs to leave the marriage and the baby would be doubtfully illegitimate.
So what's the ramification of it?
We're going to see in the next book. They're actually probably in a way even worse. They can't get married to anybody because they can't marry a Jew, maybe they're a mamzer. They can't marry another mamzer because maybe they're a Jew. So it's like the worst place to be in. Halacha ches, amru shnayim ri'inuha shenizgarsha, ushnayim oimrim lo ri'inuha. Two people say, we saw this woman get divorced. Two other people say, we didn't see her get divorced. Now usually in halacha the principle is, lo ra'inu einay raya, which means if you didn't see something, that's not a proof it didn't happen. But here, says the Rambam, there's one case where we will accept their testimony. Im hayu kulam shruyim b'chatzer achas. If all of the witnesses and the man and the woman in question lived in the same courtyard, harezu leitinase, then we cannot trust the two witnesses who said they saw the divorce. We have to trust the other ones. We don't let her get married. Why? Because if everybody's living in one backyard, news travels fast. You know how Jews are. We talk a lot. So we don't miss anything. If they're all in the same courtyard, everybody would know. But if she did get married, we're not going to force her out. The baby will be kosher, because people sometimes will divorce in secret. So maybe the fact that they didn't see it doesn't mean much. Initially, we won't let her get married, but after the fact, it's okay. Halacha tes. Ha'isha, where's my question? Where's my case over here? Okay, I think this was the slide that I lost. Okay, tes. Ha'isha shalayuchsaka isha ish. A woman who is not presumed to be married. The last thing we know about her is that she's single. Uba eid echad v'amar. One witness shows up and says, Eishes ish haisa v'nisgarsha. This woman was married, but now she's divorced. This is like another case of a pesha asaru, a pesha tir. Our only source of information about this woman is the one witness. He says, she was married, and now I'm telling you she's divorced. Uba eid echad v'amar lo nisgarsha. Here's a better slide to qualify it. Two witnesses and a woman's in question. One witness comes and says, no, she's not divorced. So think about this. Combine the two testimonies, what do we have? We have two men saying she was married. The echad meid she Geirushin, only one of them saying she's divorced. In halacha, one witness's testimony, if there's two combating him, mean nothing. So since two witnesses in total are saying she was married, well, lefichach lo tinase, she cannot get married to anybody else based on this testimony. So much so that if she does get married, we force her out of the marriage. Halacha Yud, Isha Shnei Anashim, it's a funny case. Isha Shnei Anashim Shabo Mimdina Acheres. Three guys roll into a city. Two men, one woman. Ze Oimer, Zu Ishti V'ze Avdi. One man says, this is my wife, this is my slave. V'ze Oimer, Zu Ishti V'ze Avdi. The other man says the same thing. No, that guy's my slave, and that's my wife. V'ho Isha Oimer es Shnei Avodai. And the woman is saying, no, these are both my slaves. I'm not married to anybody, these are my slaves. Harehi muteres lakoil. So she can marry any person. Why? Why don't we say, oh, we have combined testimony. Both men are saying she's married. Even though both men said that she's their wife, which means that there's a presumption that she's married. Since over here each witness was testifying over a matter concerning himself, he was saying she's married to me, not she's married in general, and they're not believed. We don't combine two testimonies, two selfish testimonies, to create a new status about the woman. So we have to assume that she's not even married at all. Halacha Yud Aleph. Let's talk about some cases of arguments between an agent and a husband. Shliach Kabbalah, the agent of receipt. Remember, there are three types of witnesses. Three types of agents. An agent who acts as the agent of a man, the extension of the husband. Maybe I can find the chart over here, 1 second. There it is. Remember these three agents. We have the Shliach Kabbalah, the woman's agent to receive her divorce, Shliach Holacha, a man's agent to deliver the divorce, and Shliach Hava'ah, a woman's agent to deliver the divorce. So we're talking about this case now over here. Shliach Kabbalah, Shahoitzi get mitachas yadai, an agent of receipt. That means he's basically like the woman. As soon as he gets the divorce, she's divorced. So he produces a divorce, and he says, look, your wife is divorced. And the husband says, no, it's forged. We treat it as if it was a husband and wife. And they have to verify the divorce with the signatories or with the witnesses who saw the transfer. As we explained. Amar Habal, but if the husband is not saying it's forged, the husband is saying, I only gave you the document as a deposit, not as a divorce. And the agent says, no, you gave it to me as a divorce. And your wife is now divorced. Hashliach Neman, the agent is believed because he's holding the divorce. Similarly, even if the woman is holding the divorce, in other words, it already reached her, and now the agent, and now there's a fight about the agent. She says, the agent gave it to me. The agent says, yes, I gave it to her because the husband gave it to me for divorce. The husband is saying, no, I never gave you the document for divorce. I only gave it to you for a deposit. Here, even though the agent isn't holding the divorce, but the woman is saying that he gave it to her, so you believe the agent, and she's divorced. If the divorce got lost, even if the husband is actually supporting the agent, he's saying, I gave it for divorce, and the agent says, yes, I gave it to her, that's actually a doubtful divorce. Because the last thing we know is that she is presumed to be married, and all we have is one witness and a husband saying she's divorced. Even if the woman supports her, the woman supports the claim, and she says, I watched, my husband gave it to the agent for divorce, the agent gave it to me. So here, since the husband and the agent are supporting her, maybe she's just being brazen. And she actually didn't get divorced, perhaps. So sadly, because there's no witnesses who watched the transfer at any point, we cannot believe the woman or the husband or the agent in the case where the divorce was lost. Yud Gimel Shliach Kabbalah Shekibel Get Leisha, an agent for receipt. He is an extension of the woman. He received the divorce for a woman. V'shal Chayla Bifnei Shnei Edim, and he sent it to the woman as two witnesses watched. V'higia Haget Liyado Natalta, she got the divorce. She took it. V'haget Yetze Mitachas Yada, she has the divorce. But all she knows is that she got it from the agent. V'hi ein liyadas im bayla shlachela, or shliach kabbalah shala, Oy shluchei shel baila. She doesn't know how it got to her. Is it straight from her husband? Is it from the agent of receipt? Maybe it was an agent of the man. It doesn't matter. She's divorced. The bottom line is she has it. Whoever sent it to her, and there's two witnesses who watched the agent hand it off to her. So we're going to consider her divorced. If later the husband shows up and protests that I never wrote it, or she will get bottle, or they says that it's cancelled, we have to verify it with the signatories. Because we have witnesses saying that the agent of receipt received it, and he had the divorce, and he's like her. He's an extension of the woman. So by default, she's divorced. The husband's protest can only require us to verify the signatures. But even if she doesn't know where it came from, the witnesses do know. And they're saying it came from the agent. Now, of course, if they can't verify it, she's not divorced. But with the verification, it's a totally good divorce. And now, at this point, Halacha Tezvav, we begin the laws of agunot, the idea of women who are in doubt about the status of their husband. We have a woman who the last thing we know is that she is married. And she and her husband take a trip abroad. Very important. We also know that there was peace between them, and there's peace in the world. I mean, there's no state of war, because tomorrow we're going to see many differences if the last thing we know is that they were fighting, because then there's less reason to believe the woman. Or if there's war in the world, there's different laws that govern it. But here it's a regular case. Peace in the world, peace between them, and they take a trip. Ubava Amra, she comes back and she says, Meis Baili, I'm sorry, on the trip my husband died. Ne'emenes, she's believed. V'tinase oy tisyabim. So much so she can get married, or do yibum if the husband died childless. Chazaka she'ena mechakelas atzma. Because we have a presumption, she knows what it means. If she's going to lie and get married to somebody else, and the husband's going to show up, both of them are going to get messed up big time. So here, this is called what's in Aramaic, it's called milta da'avida li'igluye. It's a matter which is going to be revealed. You can't make up stuff about a guy if he's alive or not. So since we have the fact that he might be alive, plus her knowledge of what the consequences are, so chazaka she'eina mekakelas atzma. There's a presumption she's not going to make herself ruined. V'teser atzma al baila harisha v'al zeh, to make herself prohibited on this first husband and on this new guy. V'tafsid ksubasa mizeh v'liyas b'nei mamzeidin. She's going to lose her ksuba payout from both husbands. Her kids are going to be illegitimate. If it's a matter which is going to come out, it's going to be revealed sooner or later. And it will be impossible to contradict or make any claims. If the guy is still alive, he's going to come back. Or someone's going to find out that he's alive. So therefore, logic would say we should believe her. Similarly, if even one witness comes and says, your husband died, Tinase al pif, she can get married based on his testimony. Usually, one witness is not so powerful. Over here, yes. Shahadavar asur lihigalis, because again, the matter will be revealed. Afilu eved isha ishivcha, even a slave or a woman or a maidservant, ve'ed mi pi aid, or hearsay. One witness says, I heard from another guy. Mi pi eved, mi pi shivcha, mi pi kreivav, even if he says, I heard from another slave, or from another maidservant, or from your relative. These are all cases that are disqualified usually for testimony. Over here, ne'emanim le'mar meis pleni. We believe them to say that this husband is dead. And the wife can get married or do yibum based on that. As the Rambam will say tomorrow at the end of the chapter, sages made many leniencies to permit Jewish women to get married. So over here, if there's no reason to assume they're lying, we're going to believe them. Everybody can testify on behalf of a woman to allow her to get married, besides for the famous 5 women, which we had in chapter 7, that are presumed to hate each other. They cannot serve as witnesses one for another for the death of their husband, because perhaps they want, because they hate and resent each other, they want to forbid this woman on her husband, even though they know that he's still alive. The Eluhain, who are the 5 women? So if this is the wife in question, okay, she wants to know if her husband died. So there's 5 relatives of hers that cannot serve for her. Chamoisa, her mother-in-law, right here. Ubas Chamoisa, the daughter of her mother-in-law, which we call the sister of the husband, right over here, this girl. Bitsarasa, a co-wife, if she ever had another wife.
The guy didn't want to have it lying there while he's working there, because if it goes disappears, they're going to blame him.
Got it, thank you. Vitsarasa and her co-wife, if she ever was married together with another woman to this man, they cannot testify on behalf of each other. V'yivimta, a woman who could potentially become her co-wife. This is her husband's brother's wife. Right here. If this guy dies, childless, you know who's going to marry her? Her husband. And this green one and this one are going to become co-wives. So even now, when he's still alive, they are considered to be resentful of each other, and they cannot testify for each other. Ubas baila, and also stepdaughter, daughter of her husband. There's a little friction between them because a daughter never likes the woman who takes her mother's place. So these 5 women cannot say testimony about each other, even though usually in this case a woman is believed, these women are not. Afilu akuma mesiach lefitumai. Even an idol-worshipping Gentile, the least reason to believe him. But if he's talking casually, he just comes to the street one day and he's just gossiping. Oh yeah, this guy died. Neman, we believe him. We can actually have the woman get married based on his testimony, as will be explained. If he's coming to say testimony officially in court, then we don't believe a Gentile. But if he's just talking casually, sure, we believe him. Even somebody who's disqualified by doing a transgression biblically. In the 14th book of the Rambam, there's a section called the Laws of Testimony. And the Rambam over there says that if somebody does a biblical transgression, usually they become disqualified for saying testimony. But here, if he's coming to say testimony about a woman that her husband died, then yes, by default he's not believed. But if he's talking casually, he is believed, like a Gentile. Why should he be less than a Gentile? But if a man is disqualified rabbinically from testimony, he is totally believed for testimony about a woman. And now we're going to have a bunch of cases where it's going to be fights about whether the husband is dead or alive. There's arguments. Halacha Yudches. One witness comes and says, the husband is dead. If that was it, we believe him. So the court allowed the woman to get married based on that. And then, after the permission was already granted, another guy shows up and says, he contradicts the first guy. And he says, he says, no, the guy didn't die, he's still alive. We don't expel the woman from her state of permission. She was already given permission, she can get married. Because the one witness who testified that the husband is dead is believed like 2 witnesses in any other case in the Torah. And the second guy who came later, he's just one guy. It's like 1 against 2. Since he came later, he cannot undo the permission that was already granted.
So what if the second one is right?
Later on, we'll deal with the consequences. But right now, the Torah says we believe the first guy. But that's only if they came one after another. What if they both came at once? One guy is saying the husband is dead, the other guy is saying no, he's not dead. Or 2 women are arguing. One woman says he's dead, one woman says no, he's not dead. So now, because it's 1 against 1, we cannot believe the first guy. She can't get married. And even if she does, she has to leave the marriage. Because she's in doubt. But what if she marries the witness who said that the husband is dead? And she's also saying, I'm certain that he died. Then, no need to leave the marriage. Because the 2 people involved in this marriage are both for sure that the husband died. This goes back to the first case. If one witness came and said that the husband is dead, we should believe him. And then later, 2 witnesses come and say he's not dead, even if she did get married, we have to force her out of the marriage. Because now it's 2 against 2. Even if we say that the first guy is believed fully, but now there's 2 guys saying that he's not dead. That causes problems.
If they have kids?
Huh? Yeah. It's illegitimate. Yep.
Legitimate?
Illegitimate. Yeah. When do we say this stringency? If the original guy who created the permission to get married was on the same status as the two people who came later and said against him that he didn't die. Like, let's say the first guy was a man, and the two that are coming now are also men and saying he didn't die. Or it was a woman who originally granted the permission, or the woman, or the wife herself, and then it's two women now combating her, or two people that are rabbinically disqualified. That's the same status. But if the original one witness was a kosher witness, a man, and now women are coming, multiple women are coming and saying that he didn't die, or disqualified witnesses are coming and saying he didn't die. Now it's like half on half. These later witnesses who are in a different status cannot come and undo the permission of the fully kosher witness. And therefore, if she gets married to one of the witnesses supporting her. Now, the commentaries say there's only one witness here, so the Rambam's wording here is a bit off, but to the one witness, let's call it. If she gets married to the one witness who gave her the permission, and she's also saying, I'm sure that my husband is dead, we won't force her out of the marriage. Because again, both people involved in the marriage are certain that the husband is dead. But without that, the fact that there's one kosher witness and multiple women who would typically be not kosher witnesses creates a half-half doubt. Neither one can outdo the other. Halacha Chaf Aleph. Isha imeres meis, hisha amra meis bali. A woman is saying the husband is dead, or the wife herself is saying my husband died. And then one witness, a kosher witness, is saying no, he's not dead. That witness is more powerful than the woman. She cannot get married. If she gets married, she has to leave the marriage. Chav Beis Isha imeres loy meis, ushtei nashim imres meis. If it's all disqualified witnesses, usually disqualified witnesses, just women. One woman is saying he didn't die, you can't get married. Two women are saying he did die, you could get married. She can get married. Because we'll soon see when it comes to people that are disqualified usually as witnesses, in the case where we believe them, majority rules. So two women saying dead, one woman saying not, we consider him dead, she can get married. 10 women are saying he didn't die, and 11 are saying he did, she can get married. The principle that 2 is like 100 only applies to kosher witnesses. But if it comes to disqualified witnesses, we always follow majority, whether that means being more lenient or more stringent. Two kosher witnesses are saying he's dead. 2 are saying he's not. Till now we're talking about 1 against 1, 1 against 2. Now we're talking about 2 against 2 fully kosher witnesses. She cannot get married. If she did, she must leave the marriage because she's in doubt. This is called a trei utrei in Talmud. 2 against 2. 2 against 2 is a stalemate. But again, if she gets married to one of the witnesses who were supporting her, and in addition she's saying, I'm certain that he's dead, she doesn't have to leave the marriage because both the husband and the wife currently are saying the husband is dead. A man has 2 wives. One of them comes and says, my husband is dead. Fascinatingly, she can get married based on her own testimony. But the co-wife, who's not saying testimony, is forbidden to get married. Because one co-wife cannot say testimony for another co-wife. Even if the woman now takes initiative and actually gets married, the woman who says her husband is dead, so now the court should be more lenient, no? Maybe we should, if she took matters into her own hands, we're still not going to say, if it's true that her husband didn't die, she wouldn't prohibit herself on him. So maybe the fact that she took action and got married is a reason to now allow the co-wife also to get married. Says the Rambam, no, we don't believe that. Shema misin asa bitzarasa, roitza hi she'i asru shtein alav. Maybe she hates her co-wife so much that she'll marry this new guy, knowing her husband is not dead, hoping that her co-wife will also get married, and then the husband will show up, and now they'll both be messed over. The Talmud calls this tamut nafshi in plishtim. You know, Shimshon, Hagibor, Samson, who was captured by the Philistines in the end of his life, what did he say? He stood under the big building and he told Hashem, you know what? Let me die. I don't care to die as long as I take down the plishtim with me. So the same concept over here. The woman says, I know I'm going to mess myself over, but I'm messing her over too, so that's good. I'll die with the plishtim. So we have to suspect for that, and therefore we cannot let either of them get we cannot let the Kohath get married. What if the one wife is saying, my husband is dead, and the co-wife is not being quiet? She's contradicting. She says, no, he didn't die. Still, the first wife can get married, because it works both ways. The same way the co-wife cannot permit the other co-wife, she also can't forbid the other co-wife. So we take each co-wife's words on their own. If one wife is saying he's dead, he died, naturally. The other one says he was killed, even though they're really, in fact, contradicting, but since they're both saying, bottom line, he's not alive, both can get married, because both are saying the husband is dead in some form or another.